Susie, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Oh my gosh, what a joy for us to hang out and talk about letting things be easy. I could do this all day.
I first heard you on Kathy Heller's podcast. That's how I was first introduced to you. And I fell in love with you. I thought, wow, I love her and your energy. And then when I started following you, the let it be easy concept, I actually made that my mantra one year. Let it be
Wow.
easy.
I
It's
have a
life
mantra.
changing. I love it. For people who aren't watching this on video, she has a sign behind her that says, let it be easy.
In neon, yes.
And
In case you forget, it's in neon.
I love it so much. It's been such a life-changing thing for me to let it be easy. And when I first heard you, I never would have dreamed that I would be interviewing you. I didn't have a podcast. I hadn't quit my job. Like, it's just such a beautiful moment for me
And
today.
how easy it is, right? Easier than you thought, probably.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
There are so many blessings.
So many. Well, I like to start every interview by asking guests, as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I love this question. Well, I didn't know exactly for sure, but because I grew up, a lot of people don't know this unless they've read my books. I grew up living in shelters, domestic violence shelters, living with other families, moving around a lot. And I didn't have an exact vision, but when I'd watch TV, I would see women in cool clothes, like tight skirts and jackets, in a city that had really tall buildings. And I didn't even know it was New York then. I was like, that's what I want. I want to be an important lady in a nice outfit in that city.
And you did it.
Really, yes. Well, yeah, I ended up working in New York for 10 years, loved it, had a great career there. And yeah, it's funny when we set our intentions or we have a goal, how it can manifest kind of without us even being conscious.
For sure. Well, for people who don't know you, can you tell our audience what you do today?
Yes. Well, now I'm called a celebrity life coach, would you believe, which sounds pretty good. And I'm an advice columnist. I'm an author releasing my third book. And my passion in life is helping people get whatever they want to be, do, and have in the most short, fun, easy way possible, because I know it can be easier than we make it.
Yeah, I love that. And Susie, you just wrote a book, Let It Be Easy. And I'm halfway through and I love it. And, I've read your other books, but there's something really special about this one.
It's very intimate. I share a lot of personal stories, and I wanted to show that ease is really across all things, right? It's not just business and it's not just relationships. It's not just money. It's really everything. If you have a little bit more grace, a bit more ease in every life area, or even if you just start in one life area, it spills over. It's like it's how it's meant to be. And when we stop resisting it and when we stop throwing up blocks all the time and manufacturing problems, it's amazing how your life can transform and how much more you can do.
Would you mind sharing how you came up with it? How did you figure this out, this concept of let it be easy? Because I think for most people, I know for me, this is the opposite of how I've lived my life. I used to think things needed to be hard.
Oh, yes. I say like ease needs a good lawyer because no one's defending it, right? Everyone will tell you it's like having kids is hard. Having a job is hard. Being married is hard. Being single is hard. Not having kids is hard. Not working is hard. Not being in shape is hard. Staying in shape is hard. It's all a lie. It's all just nonsense. It is what we decide it is. And we're used to rewarding people who talk about how much they sweat and how much they hustle and how much struggle they've been through. But I can tell you, when I was a kid, living in various shelters, moving around a lot, living on welfare, thinking, oh, when I grow up and I'm an adult and I'm making the decisions here, I'm going to have a really delicious, full, abundant life. Like as a kid, I'm like, I'm going to be that lady, who looks important in that big city. And then I kind of became that woman. I did work hard to have a great career in tech, great money. I was making $500,000 a year, and it still wasn't easy. It was like, I just thought if I did the right thing, married a good man, got a good job, had good money in the bank, and then you get tick, tick, tick. And it still wasn't easy. I was impossible. I wanted to control everything. I felt constantly anxious. And I didn't really, it was funny because I'd read so much self-help already by that age. And I knew the principles of loving yourself and thinking big and having appreciation. But it's only when Heath actually wanted to leave me. This is how open I am in the book, especially. Heath wanted to leave me because I was
Heath is her husband, Susie's husband.
Yes. He wanted to leave because I was so difficult. I wanted to control him. I was so anxious that I went to a therapist and we had an honest conversation. And he asked me if there could be another way that I could be.
Hmm.
And it didn't even occur to me that there could be another way because I'm doing everything right. I'm getting the results that I want. So this is how it has to be, right? To
Mhm.
maintain it. But once you kind of realize you can be more gentle, you can be more compassionate, you can be more creative, you don't have to kind of step in and fix things like the world, then I think a whole lot more can flow to you because you're in more of a loving high vibration. And it's
Mm.
actually living more in truth versus living in a state of stress, which is just an illusion that we all buy.
Mm. I even relax a little as you use the words gentle and compassionate.
Yeah.
Ah, like a sigh of relief, like, oh, it doesn't have to be hard.
Mhm. And that's the thing. I mean, it's amazing how many things don't have to be difficult. And there's proof everywhere because there are many people in life doing many similar things, right? Having a business, teaching a toddler basic life skills, having to maybe break up with a toxic friend, whatever it is, the challenge. And there are some people who do it with ease, and there are some people who will do it over a long period of time and really suffer.
Mm.
So there
Yeah.
is a lot of just evidence in real life about how easy life can be. In fact, how easy our lives already are. We just tend to focus on the parts that don't feel so easy. And we forget that so much ease just already surrounds us.
Mm. Oh, I love that. And I am so excited for the audience to listen to this conversation because in client conversations, we'll touch on the subject. I'll mention you. I'll introduce this concept of let it be easy. I know this was the case for me, and I'll see it in client conversations of, well, no, that can't be right. Can it all be easy? When we're so in our problems in deep, it can seem almost impossible at first. Like you're right now, the lawyer representing ease.
Oh, yes, I am. Yeah. Because I know it's possible and I see so much suffering and I just see so much of it is self-imposed. It's the resistance, the thinking that something has to be another way, wanting to please others, thinking that other people need your help when they don't.
Mm.
I just think, one huge part of the piece is letting other people be who they are with their opinions, their political views, their ideas about family, getting a tattoo, whatever it is that you have an opinion about. It doesn't mean that you have to voice your opinions. It doesn't mean that you're right. It doesn't mean that there's a way that's correct and that's incorrect. It's just, life, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. And other people aren't there for us to control.
I love that, especially right now when there's so many polarizing topics. I think for you to say, just let people be who they
Yeah.
are, it's a relief too, I think.
Well, good luck trying to change anybody. I mean, think about it. Think about how hard it is to change something in yourself, right? Like, so maybe there's a habit that you have that you don't like about yourself or something that you'd like to shift. Imagine how difficult that can be, especially over many years if you try and change something. We have this genius idea, though, that we can just stay as we are, right? But focus outward and fix someone else and like change
Yes.
them. It's absolutely insane when we think about it. It's like, are we perfect? Probably not, right? There are always some things where we could improve and change, but we love to jump right in and tell everybody else what they should be doing differently. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work either. So you may as well just give it up.
Yeah. And then that's a great point. And I know I'm part of your self-coaching society. I
Yeah.
love it. It's such a gift.
Yeah.
And you coach people on the calls. And one of the conversations that really struck me was how you kind of pointed out that it's really always all about us. And I see this in conversations. It's never really about the other person or what the other person is doing. It's our own growth that needs to happen.
Oh, it's so fascinating, right? Because it's almost like a bit of a trick because, the way that we're designed, our eyes, we look outwards, we see the world, right? We think that it's outside of us, but everything that's going on is inside of us. Even in a conversation, for example, someone's talking and you're listening, but you're also still thinking about what they're saying and what you're going to say next. Like,
Yeah.
there's an internal world, which is the world that we receive, like where we live. And often we think that external things determining how we feel and determining our behaviors and decisions, whereas the power's within. We're so powerful. I mean, when I think about how powerful a human being is, their potential, their focus, the actions that they take, it makes me wish I had many, many lifetimes because there's so many things that we can do.
Well, just being around you and following you on social media, being a part of your group, I feel like I can do more. I feel more confident. You talk in your book about how you admire Sarah Blakely and she's like this mentor for you, even though you've met her, but you don't necessarily have that official mentoring relationship.
Yet,
But
yes.
Yet. Yet.
Sarah, come on, honey.
Y'all would totally be friends. You would totally
I agree. It's just a matter of time. It's already
It's
done.
a matter of time. Yes.
But no, I think that we can look to these imaginary mentors. I always say too that a lot of my mentors are dead because I've read their books like that are very, very old before I was even alive. And there are always resources. We can help ourselves so much. And what I've noticed when I speak to my imaginary mentors, who I like to consult often, it's encouragement that they give me. It's not specific, like, well, you need to do this, and then this is the seventh step. It's just like, yeah, that's possible. That's available to you. Because they think big for themselves, they then assume the same for you, which is why it's really generous to be around big thinkers and why your own success is generous, because you're always an example for someone else of what could be available.
Oh, I love that. You said your own success is generous.
Oh, success is so generous. Yeah.
Oh,
Like, think about it. Like, I think about, so for example, Sarah Blakely, right? One of the first self-made female billionaires. I'm looking at her and I'm thinking big because another woman did that before me. What if I didn't have any examples? Like, I'd have to figure that out. I'd have to dig deeper or look for, or maybe find a male example. I don't know. But when someone's succeeding, some people will be intimidated, yes, which is not your problem, but most people will be inspired.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you for being an inspiration because when I'm around you, even before I met you at an event, but even before that, you were one of those imaginary mentors for me
Oh,
because
great.
that conversation I listened in on the podcast. And then I went through a binging of your interviews because I was like, I need more of that energy.
Yes.
I know obviously you can't be positive or high energy, maybe 24/7, but what do you do to keep yourself up in this positive or higher vibe or in this ease state?
Yes. Oh, I love this question because most people think, oh, someone's just born that way, right? They're just, it's
Mhm,
how they are, they're upbeat. What most people don't realize actually is that to be of a higher vibration, to be optimistic
mhm,
requires more work.
mm.
Anyone can be cynical and most people are. Just go out on the street or go to a subway car in New York and you'll see it's not interesting, unique, or special to be cynical. To be
Mm,
cynical, to be negative, to be pessimistic, the world has plenty of those, right? It takes some inner work. It takes the conscious decision to be responsible for your emotions, like for your
mm,
energy, that most people either don't know that they have control over because they never thought about it or examined their beliefs, or they just don't want to do it because sometimes when we're shut down and we're negative or we don't see possibilities, it means we don't have to do anything.
mm.
It kind of keeps
Yes.
us in engineering a small life because of whatever reasons we come up with. So being consciously optimistic, it's daily. I look at my goals, I review how far I've come, I remind myself of who I am. I love to remind myself that I'm going to be dead soon. Life is
Mm.
so temporary. So I don't take things as seriously.
That's what
I
I love about you. You laugh and you have fun. You
right,
know,
but what else should I do? Not laugh, not have fun. Who would that be helping?
yeah.
Certainly not me or my blood pressure. So I just think if I can appreciate what's going right, and it's all more things are always going right than wrong. Again, we love to think that that's not true because the mind will focus on one problem,
Mm,
even though like 100 things are going right and 3 things are going
mm,
wrong. So I'm conscious about what's going right. I celebrate what's going right. I remind myself of my own strengths. I do
mm,
take care of myself and appreciate myself as a human being. I know that my mind being self-directed is the most important thing in my life. So
mm.
everything else is secondary to me, just managing my energy, having a focused intention, and allowing myself to feel good emotions and not being scared of them and not being scared of losing them or thinking, if I have really high goals and I'll be disappointed. It doesn't work that way.
I love that. And I feel like you're not just saying those things, you really
Yeah.
practice them. It's very obvious. It's very obvious that you've done a lot of work just from being around you. It comes through very
Yeah.
clearly. On social media, I notice you always celebrate. And then you'll say, you don't need a reason to celebrate you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I tell you, it's a horrible shame to get to the end of your life and to think, I wish I let myself be happier, or I wish I let myself enjoy the people I share my life with, enjoy my accomplishments, however tiny, enjoy a lovely lunch out on my own in an unhurried way, like stroll to a
Mm,
bookstore. It's so meaningful, right? It's so meaningful what we get to appreciate, what we attach value to. Often I think we just don't even see it.
mm,
We just, got to get through the week, don't want to ruffle any feathers, just got to like fix this problem. It's like you're seeing your life in such a small one dimension when
mm.
there's so much to enjoy. There's so much to enjoy. No time is coming back. And I think that it's almost like you're not in on the joke if you're not enjoying your life,
Mm,
because happiness is the goal of all other goals. So if you just choose it first, then I think a
mm,
lot of good things can also just come to you.
mm. Oh, I love that. And I'm thinking of all the clients I work with that are like,
Mhm.
are wanting this, who are going to benefit so much from hearing you just say that.
Yay!
It's like, it seriously does. And then one of the things that just popped in was like, you make time for the beach. You live in Miami and you'll go to the beach during the week. And I'm like,
yeah.
yes. Or you went on vacation and you posted how you didn't take your laptop. And I was like, yes.
Isn't that funny that like going on vacation without a laptop and going to the beach seems like a bit rebellious?
Yes. And especially, no, for me and my background. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. I want to do that. That's allowed. I can do that. And I know a lot of people feel that way.
It's almost like, I think sometimes people get a little bit uncomfortable and they also don't like it, right? They're like, nice for you. And I'm like, yeah, actually it is nice for me. And it's culture. It's like, I could be another way, right? I could always be at home, always working. I could bring my laptop on vacation, sure. But it's really, I mean, the fact that it's even considered like a rebellion or something that's really out there, I think is so fascinating, right? So woman goes on holiday, doesn't bring computer. That's pretty normal if you're in Europe. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
In America, less so. Going to the beach on a Monday or a Tuesday, is someone going to come and arrest me? Because I should be working on an email campaign or something. I don't know. Come and get me, guys. Like, I don't
Oh, I love it so much.
And if someone says to me like, oh, you go to the beach, or I'm like, yeah, I do. I have a really good time. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it makes me think of how the quote by Marianne Williamson, where it says, you're like, light liberates others and gives others permission. And I feel like you do that by being you and living life intentionally and happily, like gives other people permission to do the same.
I really hope so. And this is true why I also like to celebrate my body, and I like to celebrate all things that most people just don't allow themselves to, right? Like I'm no supermodel, but I think I'm pretty cute.
You're gorgeous.
And why, thank you. But I'm not going to complain about my body. I'm not going to complain about my weight. I'm not going to complain about how much work I have to do. There are so many things that we can just kind of tack onto, attach ourselves to because other people are doing it. So what if you were just the exception, the woman who's accepting of herself? It's almost like the world doesn't know what to do with that.
Well, I was just thinking about years ago when I hired my first coach, she had me think about my ideal day. And today I get to live that. Yes, there are some hard days, but like I get to take my daughter to school. I come back and coach clients I love working with. I have balance. I have freedom, flexibility, a wonderful husband. All those things weren't there at that point. And I feel guilty sometimes thinking like, ooh, I'm very aware of it. Like, oh, I need to work through that because it's okay to feel those things, to be happy and live my ideal day. I've been intentional.
Oh my God. This is actually something we're going to be speaking about next month in self-coaching, Lupe, because we're talking about letting go of guilt, the difference between real guilt and imagined guilt. And there is so much imagined guilt and it's heartbreaking. Look at the life that you've created. Take your daughter to school, serve your clients, have a fun interview like this, have a great husband, and you should suffer.
There's like a part of my brain that's like, but shouldn't it be harder? Shouldn't I and I'm very aware of it. And so I have to actively know, but it's still, I think, something that's a part of me. And I see it in client conversations too, of like, if I quit my job, then it would be easier. So then is that okay?
Yeah. The thing is, when we really question something, so life's going really well. This kind of came up recently with someone I was talking to. Life's going really well and it's not going well for a lot of other people. So I kind of feel bad, or I don't want to tell the truth, or I'll kind of chime into a conversation and go, yeah, I'm stressed too, even though it's true, It's like, we need hope. Lupe, the life that you've created is a dream life for many people. So you living it is like hope inducing. It's like, oh, she did it. She used to have a very different life and now she has this life. That's very helpful. Like, that's generous. And if you play it down or say that you're stressed, maybe when you're not, or look for reasons to suffer or problems to find, you're not being generous. There's nothing generous in that. I always come back to this expression that I learned from Abraham Hicks. She's like, it's almost like saying, I've been healthy now for, I'm 37 years old. I've been healthy for 37 years. I'm going to be sick now so that someone else can be healthy. It makes no sense, right? So if you're suffering or if something goes badly for you, maybe that will feel a bit more comfortable because maybe you feel a bit more used to some discomfort, but it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anybody. And we make connections between like say you're thriving and there's some interpretation that there's something wrong with that, you're making a connection between you thriving and this emotion that feels necessary, and there's no connection. You thriving and how you feel about that is your decision. But there's no truth to something's going well, let me feel bad. Something's going well, let me worry about what could go wrong in 2 weeks. There is nothing connecting those things. We just make a lot of meaning from sometimes feeling we're maybe not worthy of it being so easy. Maybe we're not worthy of things just kind of working out for us when you absolutely are.
It makes me think of Brene Brown, where she talks about sometimes we're really happy and that joy is the most vulnerable thing to feel. And sometimes I'm looking at my beautiful 3-year-old Ellie sleeping and oh my God, something's going to happen. I'll think of, oh my God, something bad is going to happen because life is great. How do you deal with that? Does that come up for you, or how do you stop that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm conscious of it. If something's going really well, it's easy to go, I've got to maintain this, right? Or like, oh, it's going really well now, but there's something else coming up and that might not go so well, but I've got this new level now and people are watching me and I'm just aware that that's how my mind works. So I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. I've got a story going on here, that there's something that I need to maintain or control or protect. And it's such an illusion. It's such an illusion. The way that, okay, just say something really good happens, right? And I'm like, oh my, I feel so happy right now, but this might not last because something could go wrong. I'm like, oh, okay, I can see what my brain's trying to do. It wants to protect me, it wants to keep me safe. Thank you.
Yeah, I call it the inner critic.
Yeah.
Who's trying to keep us safe.
Because that's where our brains are wired for survival. It's the only number one job, right? There's a positive intention behind anything. Like even if we drink too much or even if we gossip, it's because we want to feel better, right? So our mind is just constantly trying to just like keeping us in a soothing, safe place. But luckily we're human beings, not animals. And we know that we can reason with ourselves. This is where wisdom comes in. It's like, okay, I can feel panicked about this or I can't. Let's see, let's look at this situation, or I know what's happening. I know what my mind is doing now. This is familiar, but it doesn't mean that it's correct.
Yes, I love that. That's the key, being aware. Yeah.
Yes, but think about, most people never do this, right? They never think, say there's a stimuli, something that happens externally, and then an emotion that happens in a millisecond. So we all just walk around thinking the thing outside of us is the responsible for our emotion, because it happens a million times a day. This is good, this is bad. We interpret immediately. Sometimes we could slow that down a bit and question it, especially when it comes to negative emotion. So if something happens that's perceived as bad, we immediately become this Supreme Court judge who knows everything. This thing happened, or this thing that's disappointing happened, and it's bad. So I'm going to feel upset. How little we know about the future, how little we know about whether something or not is bad. We jump to judgment so quickly, whereas just having a bit more of a neutrality to observing and not taking score immediately and being curious, it keeps you alive. It keeps you creative, playful, open-minded. And that's why good things continue to happen, not when we're shut down and stressed out.
Oh, I love that. Ellie just started preschool a couple months ago. And in the morning, I was getting her to school at 9:30. It was preschool at that point. And my goal was 8:30. And I'm driving back and I'm thinking, I'm such a bad mom. I got Ellie to my 3-year-old school at 9.
Mom.
That's terrible. I should have woken up earlier. And I had to stop myself and think, this is my inner critic, first of all. But I think because I care so much, it means that I am a good mom. And she's 3 and it's okay if she doesn't get to school at 8:30 and there's no official start time. It's whenever you can bring her. So it was just me beating myself up. So it was a very clear moment of, oh, I can let this go. And I think that applies to all areas of our life.
Oh my gosh. I mean, this is why I love disassociation so much, because when we're doing something, when we're in it, it's so emotional. You take your daughter to school, you have this perceived or this perception that, she's late and that makes you a bad mom, right? Like, call child services. But it's like, think about it. Just say that there's a mother, there's a daughter on their way to school somewhere where there's no fixed time, even if there is a fixed time. And mother drives daughter to school a little bit later than the actual opening time of the school. What does that mean if you imagine it happening to a woman and her daughter in Ireland? What's your opinion of that?
It's nothing bad. Yeah.
If you, your child, your story, your own childhood, there are so many things at play when we see it through a personal lens, right? Any event. But when we just kind of go, yeah, look, mother, school, drop off the neutrality of it, it's it's nothing.
Yeah. Oh, one
Realize it's happening.
disassociation is what you kind of talk about too. So it's this
Yes.
concept of separating ourselves, creating some distance between ourselves and the situation.
Yes. Yes. Oh, and it's a wonderful tool to use as well as association. So, interestingly, the way that the mind works is if something is really good. So, if we have a visualization of the future, something that we
Mhm.
really want, we always see it in a disassociated state,
Mm,
which is meaning that we see ourselves from a distance, right? But if something's painful and traumatic in our past, we'll feel it in an associated state.
mm,
And we can consciously flip those
mm,
because our brain, again, with survival being its number one priority, it wants to put us in the dangerous situations in the most powerful position so we can protect ourselves.
mm,
Goals and so forth, what we want to achieve later, aren't as dangerous, so we can just see them from a distance. But we want to do the opposite. We want to really embody future us, be in our body, see out from our own eyes, and then like allow ourselves to enjoy what it would feel, something good happening in the future. And then anything we deal with in the present doesn't feel comfortable. When we disassociate, like see an aerial view, or just don't say me and her, but two women somewhere. You see it from a truth,
mm,
fact,
mm.
cold, just objective way. You really start to come back to yourself and go, oh my gosh, I really worry so much. I worry, no wonder I'm miserable. I'm making everything mean something and mean something bad.
Yeah. During one of our calls, the self-coaching call, group calls, I was going through something and I volunteered to be in the hot seat. And I was just
Mm.
really stressed out about something. I was volunteering for an event and you said you use that tool, disassociate. And then you said that even if I messed up, people feel relieved when they see other people mess up. And so there was like this lightness to it. And so that tool was so helpful for me in that moment because
Oh,
I was very in my head, very, even though I know these things, I was very aware, like as a coach of all the things, it still was difficult for me to separate myself from those emotions because it was something new I was doing.
yes. Oh, yes. And I mean, even yesterday, I had an Instagram live with someone who I'm partnering with at the moment. The internet didn't work. Everything just went wrong.
Oh
And I can,
no.
all these things, the link was broken, the Instagram kept freezing. And I was like, you know what? I'm really happy this is happening. There's a lesson here. Like stuff happens and you just show up. And I had a couple of messages from people saying, it's really good to know you're human and this stuff
Oh.
happens to you too. And I'm like, yes, like that's why we didn't cancel it. That's why we just kept going. Truly just showing it's a reality. Technology doesn't work sometimes. Does it mean anything bad? No. It's just
Mm.
something that's real. And it's just this neutral thing versus there could be a story about why me. Maybe there's something else I could have done. Everything's against me,
I'm not good
all this.
enough.
Yeah, it's just an IG live that froze and a link that was broken. Good. Let everyone see that it happens to all of us.
One thing that I too wanted to highlight in your book, you talked about imposter syndrome. And I think the way you worded it is if you're not feeling imposter syndrome, then
Yes.
maybe I
You're
can't remember exactly.
coasting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's very possible. If you're like, I'm good, I have no fear, I'm just so comfortable and sure of myself. I would say probably there's a lot that you could be doing then. If you have the same exact job for 10 years and nothing changes and it's just always the same, of course you'll be so comfortable there. Right. And maybe that's good, right? Maybe there's no desire, right? That's cool. But if there is a desire and if you follow it and it feels uncomfortable, it just means that you're stretching. Physically, our bodies feel uncomfortable when we push them, but it doesn't mean that we stop doing it, right? It
Mm.
means that, yeah, we're getting stronger, getting better. I like to think about it even in terms of waves, like in the ocean, like the
Mm.
best surfers seek out the biggest, scariest waves. That's where the fun is. That's how you become the best surfer. And life is just a series of waves.
Mm.
So, but if I'm like, I'll just stay over here, like in the safe little paddles, of course I'm not scared because I've been here for 10 years and like nothing bad's happened. The best surfers seek out the biggest, scariest, most unpredictable waves, right? And
Mm.
that's kind of how I want to live my life, leaving nothing, not like, oh, I wonder if I could have gone for it there, or did I play it too small? I'd rather take some risks. And look, surfing is like physically a risk. The risks that we're talking about here are not physically dangerous. Right? It's like asking someone out, asking for a client, asking for a media win, whatever it could be. You're not threatened at all. That's just our own perception.
Yeah. When I think about imposter syndrome and that feeling of discomfort and getting like a no, I think you talk about this so well. You talk about how you get a lot of no's and you
Yeah.
keep moving. You talked about when pitching to the media, you said,
Uh-huh.
oh, I can't remember the number, but 100 pitches.
Yep.
And I thought, wow, Susie, you sent so many. And obviously you've had success with it, but because you've been willing to put yourself out there 100 times or whatever the number is. And I thought that's so motivating and brave. And I think when we feel like an imposter, sometimes we don't want to put ourselves in the place where we could be rejected. I pitched to have someone on the podcast yesterday, and her media person responded saying no, but we deeply appreciate you reaching out. And it was a very nice rejection.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
It was very sweet. It was very nice. And then I thought, oh, but I'm proud of myself for having asked, because I wouldn't have known. Or
that is your only job. The outcome is never your business. The outcome is never under your control, and it never will be. The fact that you go and you do it and it's uncomfortable, massive high five, you won. I don't care what the outcome is. If you just keep doing it, if you keep taking action, the yeses are just a matter of time. I really wish everyone knew this.
Yeah.
Like, don't go fooling yourself thinking other people are more talented or other people have some Midas touch. They're just doing it more. Success is volume, like just doing it and being pretty neutral about whatever happens, like a yes and a no, it just being what it is. But if you do the thing that's uncomfortable, I don't care what the result is, it's a massive high five. Tick, yes, accomplishment. Accomplishment, like boom, champagne for you.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Success is volume. Is that how you worded it?
Yes. I mean, in the book, I break down, like, that Dolly Parton has over 100 albums. Like J-Lo, I can't remember now the number, but over 40. And a lot of their songs and albums have been flops. They don't focus on them. We don't hear about them anymore, but it's not because they both had one good song or one good album. That's why their careers are so long, because they just keep creating. And often it's like maybe 5 to 10 songs that are really the standouts over thousands of songs.
Yes, that's going to resonate with so many people, and it applies to every aspect of our life. It's so powerful. It really dating, work, career, everything.
Just try it once, you know what I mean? You got to stay, like, you're just staying in the game. I mean, seriously, talent is so overrated. Truly, talent is a nice thing to have naturally. We all have various natural talents, but that's not the thing. It's showing up, staying there, staying put, being resilient. This is where courage is. And this is where, if you feel imposter syndrome, you can congratulate yourself because you're doing something bigger than you've done before. And everything is right about that. Everything is right about that.
I'm so motivated. I think this is going to really resonate with people, because a lot of people, me included, have struggled with this. And so I think showing up and being brave and being willing to be rejected, being willing to be uncomfortable, that's the process. That's the journey. It keeps growing us. And that's where the magic really happens.
And it never gets easier. That's good news. Sometimes we think, oh my gosh, who was it? I think it was a footballer. He said, when you're at the beginning of your career, no one respects you, right? You're starting out. When you're in the middle, everyone ignores you, right? Because you're in the middle. When you're at the top, everyone comes after you, right? And then he's like, when you're at the top, you're obsessed with maintaining it and you're scared of losing it. So look, there are all these different life stages that we go through in many cycles, many different areas of our life. Each has its hard, right? Each has its own kind of something to navigate, right? So at what point do you enjoy it? Every point you enjoy it. Because you're like, I'm just starting out. No one knows me. I'm in the middle. I'm kind of being ignored. I'm at the top now, but the haters come out when you're at the top, right? And then you're at the top and you're like, oh my gosh, someone else is going to be at the top in a month. And so where is the sanity here? The sanity is enjoying every single moment. That's always where your power is. And if you're not, then you're not in on the joke and your life will be suffering and you'll be like, what the hell happened?
I love the way you've worded that. You're not in on the joke.
Yes. It's like everyone's so stressed out. It's like, you're piecing out over here, having a good time, then you're very much in on it and the world is yours.
Oh, and the way you phrased that was very clear. That example of like, nobody respects you, or in the middle, no one, because I think sometimes our brain can think, well, when I reach this revenue or this goal, this promotion, then I'll be happy. I think our brains sometimes do that. And so there's something really powerful about being grateful and happy and enjoying the process, what's going on right now.
So a small example that happened to us recently. We're living in New York for 10 years, and in New York, you don't really have a car, right? It's a walkable city, etc. And then in Miami, we've been here for 2 years and we just got a car, right?
I saw that. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It's so fascinating having a car after not having one. But so it was 12 years without a car, right? Heath especially was very excited about the car, researched the car, watched all the videos about the car, the car, you order the car, it takes months for the car to arrive. There's so much anticipation for this damn car, right? And then one afternoon you go get the car. And that moment of joy is about 7 minutes. Like you get the car, you put the key in. Actually, I doesn't even have a key. You get in the car and you go. And then we're like, okay, what's for lunch? And it's like all of that period. Imagine if we weren't enjoying ourselves until the car came. Well, that 7 minutes of joy is pretty much what the promotion is, right? What getting engaged is, what weight loss, getting into some pre-pregnancy jeans, whatever it may be is. And then you're like, what's next?
Yeah. And you talk about that in the book. I love the term that you used, hedonic, or how do you?
Hedonic adaptation. Yeah, I break it down in the book. What we think will make us really happy and what we think will make us really sad actually isn't as dramatic as we think, because we get used to it so quickly. So if you're only getting the 7 minutes of joy versus the months of waiting for a car and planning for a car, that's not a very good value exchange. That's a nonsensical value exchange. And yet we often, when I, and it's like, you'll be happy for a minute and then you'll come back to your same base level of happiness. So.
And when I'd heard that before, but I hadn't really heard the opposite. How would you word that?
Yeah.
Because I think that was really powerful too.
Yeah, that the fear of something, the fear of adversity or a bad consequence is worse than if it actually happened. But what we anticipate. And I could tell you, I lost my dad when I was 19 and we always were fearing his death. So if you've ever had an addict in your family or a relative close friend, you always worry about that, right? So like my whole life, it was always this fear of like, is my dad going to be okay? And then my dad dies, right? There's a day that happens. And all of the worrying was worse. The news is final. You have to deal with all of the emotions, a flurry of emotions, and grief is different for everyone. But the anticipation of this terrible thing happening was worse. And it was so much longer than when the worst happened, And so we do this to ourselves unknowingly all the time. Like the good stuff we think will bring us all this joy, and it does, but it's only for a short period. And the bad stuff that we fear that we think will break us doesn't. So this anticipatory fear that we live with, it's worse than if the actual thing came true. And so many things that we worry about and think about never happen. Yes.
What's that quote that says most of the things I worried about never actually happened?
That's what I say in my intro. Mark Twain said, I've lived terrible things in my life, some of which actually happened, right? So we get to decide how we're going to feel and what we're going to anticipate. And I always find such peace in that. Oh my God, if this terrible thing happened, it wouldn't be as bad as I think. It wouldn't be as bad as my mind is making it out to be, because it wants to protect me. I'd be okay.
Well, there was something else too that you shared in your book that was beautiful around grief.
Yes.
And do you mind sharing that thought around grief?
Yes, I think that, we don't really know how to talk about grief. It feels like it's very uncomfortable. We don't know what to say to someone who's lost somebody. We don't know what to say to somebody who's sick. We don't know. Like, it's very, very uncomfortable. And so grief is natural. It happens to everyone. If you've lived a few years on this earth, you will have a loss, or you will soon have a loss. It's just a matter of time for everybody. The way that my mum reframed it to me that I really love is that grief is love. Right? Because if there weren't a hole left, or a feeling of emptiness or abandonment or sadness, if there weren't something so special there, so precious, that isn't there in the same way anymore, we wouldn't feel so bad, right? So sad, so crestfallen, right? All of these emotions that we fear so much. It's because we had something really wonderful. And in my opinion, we still do. Love is stronger than death. But when we grieve, it's love. Grief is love. And if we don't experience grief, then really have we loved? I don't know. But I want to live a big, loving, juicy life. Only love is real, right? As it says in A Course in Miracles.
I love that so much. It's bringing me tears.
Grief is something that we don't have to fear. It's a common human emotion. It'll happen for all of us. And I think that when we realize it's love, grief is love. And when we don't rush ourselves, we bring that gentleness, that tenderness to ourselves. It's something that it's just part of our life.
Okay? Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Susie. That was beautiful. What? I love you too.
And this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. To close, what would you say to someone? I started this podcast because I wanted to motivate people to find work they love.
Oh, yes.
I feel very strongly about that because I was in a career that it was a great career, but it wasn't one that I felt fulfilled or that was aligned with kind of my strengths and I want that for people. I feel very passionate about that. So what would you say to that person who's listening and who's not happy in work? how can they let it be easier? What are your thoughts on that? Because you've made a big pivot in your life and you are doing work that you love, you're passionate about, you live this happy life. But what would you say to that person?
I would remind them that their desires aren't chosen by them. So if you have a desire, like a calling to do something, it's not because you decided that's a good idea and okay, you're going to make all the right moves to get there. It's because you have some important work to do. You have something to give. And desires are such gifts because if we have a desire to do something, it's like, everything we need is inside, right? Everything we need is inside to fulfill that desire. So a desire is a gift. And to trust, there are no accidents here, right? It's not as if we live in a world where you're given a desire and a gift to do something, and then it's so cruel that there's no way to get there, right? Like that's not the world that we live in. And so your job is to trust that your desire is meant to be there, that it's your job to fulfill it. It's your obligation to fulfill it. Often we think, I feel guilty for pursuing my dreams. No, this is your only job. You got one. You got one job. And then my practical advice would be to be obsessed with success stories, looking for people like you just a few years ahead. There is proof everywhere of what's possible. It's just, are you tuned into that? Or are you focusing on small business as well? Or are you focusing on Facebook ads don't work, right? Like all this stuff is just minor crap. You know what I mean? Focus on the success stories, people who succeeded against all odds. I have no college education, Lupe, right? I'm so open about this. And I would always be obsessed with reading about these millionaires who are high school dropouts, millionaires who are college dropouts. And so that's the only thing in my mind, what's possible and how I'm fully equipped for everything. Because hey, like there's proof everywhere. So support your brain with the right proof, be intentional, and then hook up with some friends who are like really encouraging. And if you can meet with some people, like hire a coach like you who can help you see what's possible and get there, because your life is worth it. Like your life is worth it. Your contribution is worth it. It's all that matters, really.
Thank you so much, Susie. That was beautiful. Where can people find your book? Let It Be Easy. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. Go out and get it. Tell us all the things.
Oh my gosh, Let It Be Easy is available everywhere books are sold. You can pre-order before November 9th, but November 9th is the release date. And it's going to be a party. There's plenty of other stuff to follow. Don't you worry. You'll be seeing more. You'll be seeing it everywhere. But yeah, Let It Be Easy. I mean, there's also an audiobook version if you like to listen that I just finished recording. And you owe yourself the gift of ease. We owe ourselves the gift of ease, and your life will continue, right? We'll continue to be alive and move forward. And it can be hard or it can be easy. Right. That's a decision that we get to make. And I've given the most practical advice that I can in various life situations to help you allow it to be easier. And if something can be made easier to you, like, what is that worth? It's worth everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susie. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Lupe.
Yay.